Imagine a huge crowd gathered in a packed auditorium, waiting to hear the voice of someone brave enough to speak the truth, a voice for justice and freedom. But in a single instant, bullets shatter everything. America's history is full of dark, unsolved moments like this, assassinations that seem closed on the surface, but hide layers of mystery beneath. Today, we're diving into 10 controversial and unsolved assassinations in American history. Stories that span from high-profile murders to secret political plots, each one holding secrets that remain buried in the shadows. Get ready, this journey takes you straight into the darkest corners of America's past. And if you want to see it all unfold, make sure to hit like and subscribe, because what you're about to witness will shock you. Number 10, Malcolm X. On a cold night in New York City, Malcolm X steps onto the stage, eyes blazing with determination, words ready to ignite a movement. Then, suddenly, the sound of gunfire rips through the room, each shot freezing hearts and shattering the moment. The assassins, Talmadge Hayer and his accomplices, were quickly apprehended, but were they truly the only ones responsible? Evidence suggests that the FBI and certain political groups may have been lurking behind the scenes. Classified files remain locked away, and the official narrative is riddled with contradictions and unanswered questions. Internal disputes within the Nation of Islam and government pressures turned this assassination into a deliberate warning, not just a tragic incident. Every shot, every hidden detail, pulls you deeper into a dark conspiracy. Malcolm X was killed, but the questions his case left behind continue to haunt history. Who really orchestrated it? Number 9, Martin Luther King Jr. Memphis, Tennessee, 1968. Martin Luther King Jr. had spent the day speaking out for justice, for equality, for the rights of every American. That evening, he stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Montel. Then a single gunshot rang out. Dr. King fell, and the world seemed to stop. A man named James Earl Ray pulled the trigger, but whole circumstance became a mystery. First of all, many researchers believe Ray was not acting alone, and there may have been powerful forces, political or governmental, working behind the scenes. Some evidence was ignored or suppressed, and key witnesses gave conflicting accounts, leaving lingering questions that still haunt historians today. The assassination sent shockwaves across the nation, silencing a voice that had inspired millions and igniting debates about who really benefited from his death. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, but his legacy and the mystery surrounding his murder continue to fuel speculation. Number 8, John F. Kennedy. Back in 1963, President John F. Kennedy rode through the streets in an open-top motorcade, waving to cheering crowds. The air was electric with hope, optimism, and a sense of history in the making. Then, the shots rang out. From the Texas School Book Depository, JFK was struck, chaos erupted, and the nation's heart stopped. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested, but the story of that day is far from simple. Numerous theories suggest Oswald was a pawn, and powerful entities inside the government, organized crime, or even foreign interests might have orchestrated the assassination. Investigations were rushed, evidence mishandled, and countless witnesses reported seeing things that never made it into official reports. The infamous Warren Commission provided an official explanation, but for many, the truth lies buried under decades of secrecy and conflicting accounts. Recent disclosed documents, known as JFK files, points fingers directly at FBI and foreign intelligence assets. Still, no one knows the agenda behind his assassination, but it opened a Pandora's box of questions about power, conspiracy, and the lengths some would go to silence a leader. Number 7, Lee Harvey Oswald by Jack Ruby. Just 2 days after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the alleged shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, was being transferred from the Dallas City Jail. Television cameras were rolling, reporters packed the basement, and millions of Americans watched live on national television. Then, out of nowhere, nightclub owner Jack Ruby emerged from the crowd. He pulled out a .38 revolver and fired a single shot into Oswald's abdomen. In an instant, Oswald collapsed. gasping for air, and the nation once again witnessed a shocking murder, this time live on national television. Ruby claimed he acted out of rage and grief over Kennedy's death, but Ruby was known to be connected to organized crime, and he had repeatedly insisted, "I'm just a patsy," fueling suspicions that he wasn't acting alone in the assassination. Also, the fact that police allowed Ruby, armed and dangerous, into such a secure area raised serious questions about whether this was an inside job. To put the cherry on top, Ruby was hospitalized before his second trial and mysteriously passed away. Investigations by FBI and the Congress denied any conspiracy or hidden agenda, but till this day, the whole case remains extremely controversial. Number 6, Robert F. Kennedy. Fast forward to 5 years later. The Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles buzzed with excitement. Robert F. Kennedy had just delivered a victory speech, and the air was electric with hope for change. Supporters cheered, cameras flashed, and for a moment, it seemed like history was being rewritten. Then came the shots. Rapid, chaotic, and devastating. Kennedy collapsed, leaving the room in stunned silence. The assassin, Sirhan Sirhan, was caught immediately, but the story doesn't end there. Many believe Sirhan was just a pawn in a much larger conspiracy. There are whispers of political motives and shadowy figures manipulating events behind the scenes. Witness accounts conflict, evidence was mishandled, and key details were mysteriously lost or ignored. Questions about who really pulled the strings, whether inside or outside political circles, remain unanswered to this day. Robert F. Kennedy's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a pivotal moment that shattered hope for millions. Number 5, Abraham Lincoln. The Civil War had ended, and the nation was beginning to breathe a tentative sigh of relief. President Abraham Lincoln attended Ford's Theater that evening, smiling, shaking hands, and enjoying what seemed like a peaceful night of entertainment. Then, John Wilkes Booth, an actor with a deadly grudge, crept behind the president and fired a single shot at point-blank range. Chaos erupted in the theater. Lincoln was mortally wounded. Some historians argue Booth wasn't acting alone, hinting at a network of Confederate sympathizers who plotted to decapitate the Union leadership. Letters, secret meetings, and mysterious accomplices suggest a conspiracy far more elaborate than a lone gunman scenario. The assassination shook a recovering nation to its core, leaving questions about who else might have been involved and what might have happened if Lincoln had survived. Lincoln's life was cut short, but the ripple effects of his assassination still shape American history. Number 4, Tupac Shakur. In 1996, Tupac Shakur, the voice of a generation, a cultural icon, and one of the most influential rappers in history, was riding in a black BMW with Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight. After leaving a Mike Tyson fight, the Strip was alive with lights, music, and energy. But then, everything changed. A white Cadillac pulled up beside their car. A burst of gunfire rang out. Tupac was struck 4 times. 6 days later, at just 25 years old, he was pronounced dead. The FBI pinned the attack on gang rivalries, particularly the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop feud. But here's the problem. No one has ever been convicted of Tupac's murder. Witnesses disappeared, evidence went missing, and the investigation stalled. Some believe Suge Knight himself had motives. Others point to the FBI claiming Tupac's political activism and growing influence threatened the establishment. And then there are those who insist Tupac never died at all, that his assassination was staged and he lives on in hiding. Tupac wasn't just a rapper. He was a revolutionary voice against systemic injustice. His unsolved murder has become one of America's most haunting mysteries, blending celebrity, crime, and conspiracy in a way that refuses to fade from memory. Number 3, the notorious B.I.G. Just 6 months after the murder of Tupac Shakur, another hip-hop giant fell. Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G., had just left a music industry party. He climbed into the passenger seat of a black Chevy Suburban. As his caravan stopped at a red light, a dark-colored Chevy Impala pulled up alongside. A gunman opened fire. 4 bullets tore into Biggie. Within minutes, the 24-year-old rap legend was gone. Due to the eerie timing, just months after Tupac's assassination, made many believe the two murders were connected. Just as Tupac's case, police blamed gang violence and the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. No one was ever charged again. The FBI and LAPD had both rappers under surveillance, fueling speculation that law enforcement knew more than they admitted. Even decades later, the murder remains unsolved, with documents sealed and key witnesses silent.
Number 2. The attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. A rally filled with thousands of supporters cheering for former President Donald Trump. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire ripped through the air. Chaos erupted. Secret Service agents rushed to cover Trump, but a bullet grazed his ear, narrowly missing what could have been a fatal shot. The shooter, positioned with a clear line of sight, was taken down, but the questions that followed were far from over. You may ask, how did an armed gunman manage to get so close to a presidential candidate under Secret Service protection? Or why did so many security failures happen? Trump himself later declared, "It was God's hand that saved me." But many Americans are left wondering, who really wanted him silenced? This wasn't just an attack on one man. It was an attack on democracy itself. The fact that a leading presidential candidate came inches away from assassination has left deep scars on America's political landscape. And the unanswered questions about security lapses and possible hidden motives make this case one of the most haunting modern mysteries. Number 1. Charlie Kirk. September 10th, 2025, Orem, Utah. The campus of Utah Valley University was buzzing with excitement as conservative activist Charlie Kirk took the stage for a Turning Point USA event. Students gathered, eager to hear his views and engage in dialogue. But as Kirk began speaking, a single shot rang out from a nearby rooftop. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but it was too late. Charlie Kirk was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. The suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, was identified after a 33-hour manhunt. He had no prior criminal history, but had recently become increasingly political, expressing disdain for Kirk's views. Robinson was apprehended after his father, with assistance from a minister, turned him in to authorities. He faces multiple felony charges, including aggravated murder and felony firearm discharge. Investigators found bullet casings at the scene inscribed with provocative messages, and digital communications indicated Robinson's intent. Yet, the circumstances around the investigation were sketchy at best. There was a considerable delay to identify the perpetrator, despite many security cameras around the venue. Also, someone distracted the security who were close to apprehend the shooter. That gave time for the shooter to escape. Later, he was released with no charges pressed. Many even suggest that the initial appearance of the shooter, caught by phone cameras and released by FBI early on, didn't match Tyler Robinson. The case at every aspect remains a mystery and the source of controversy about what's called the deep state. History isn't just a series of dates and names. It's a tangled web of secrets, conspiracies, and voices that were silenced. From presidents to activists, from public figures to rising stars, each story we explored today scratches the surface of a much darker truth. If you thought today's countdown was eye-opening, don't stop here. Click on the next video in our series to uncover even deeper conspiracies, hidden motives, and the stories the history books left out. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and get ready, because the truth behind America's most dangerous secrets is far more shocking than you can imagine. The next video is waiting, and the story isn't over yet.